Next up, we're going to move on from the, if you like, switch from the commercial angle of open banking to a sustainable angle. We're going to hear from not just one, but two experts in our next session. They come from Platformable, an organization recognized for its API-related research and thought leadership and the social responsibility that comes with open participation in open ecosystems. I'm delighted to welcome Jannika Aalto and Phuong Pham from Platformable. Good afternoon, both.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Great. Now I know you've got some plenty of information to share, so I'm not going to hold back anymore. Would you perhaps just share your screen? That looks great. The stage is yours for the two of you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you. And it's good to be here. So like Claire mentioned, my name is Jannika. I use the pronouns she and her, and I'm the Open Sustainability Lead at Platformable. And I'm here with my colleague Phuong, who's going to introduce herself a bit later. So just really quickly, at Platformable, we create value models and measure how value is created and flows through open digital ecosystems. And in this session, we will be sharing some key findings from our work on how open banking and open finance can help build green fintech products in Europe and in the UK. So let's start with some definitions. So by green fintech, we mean the subset of digital finance products and services that offer features to address sustainability. And we say this to differentiate that we're not talking about sustainable IT or IT infrastructure, but rather fintech products that in their value proposition create positive environmental value. And we thought we'd start with some examples. So let's have a look at three green fintechs that we have on the screen. So first we've got Taxonomy. They are an environmental impact calculator. So they're currently tracking greenhouse gases and water. And they connect with open banking APIs to pull account and payments data. And then they calculate the environmental impact of those digital transactions. So from a consumer perspective, money that you spend on travel, groceries, electricity bills, and so on. And their transaction impact API is one of the most mature in the market, and it's been used by many of the other stakeholders in the ecosystem. Then we got Tumalo. This is an interesting one because they have two API products, a transaction API and a voting API. The transaction API provides visibility into the underlying companies that a fund or portfolio might be invested in. So instead of getting this impossible to read fact sheet, it shows a full breakdown of which companies your money is financing. And the voting API enables end users to vote on ESG issues in corporate annual general meetings. And just to clarify for definition, although I'm sure many are familiar with the term, ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance topics, and it's often used in the context of finance. And then lastly, we've got Cushion. So Cushion is a savings, investment, and pension product for personal finances. One of their products is a net zero pension. So the funds that the pension is invested in don't generate greenhouse gases on a net basis. And this is important because we know that moving to an environmentally sustainable pension fund is 21 times more effective in climate change mitigation than some of the more common actions that we're used to thinking about, like recycling, reducing flying, going vegetarian, and these kinds of things. Because the funds that your pension or the pension is invested in would be used to finance new sustainable forest projects or renewable energy and these sorts of things. And Cushion uses the Tumalo's voting API to give the end users, the pension holders, an easy way to state their voting preferences. So whenever there would be an ESG issue on the corporate annual general meeting agenda, the user can in-app tell the fund manager how they would like them to vote, and then therefore ultimately having an impact on how the investments are being allocated. Now, these are just three examples. We will look at some more throughout the session, but just to give you an idea of the types of companies that we are talking about today. And now I'll pass on to Phuong, who's going to give us a bit more of a context to the market.
Thanks, Jannika. Hi, I'm Phuong Pham, and I go with the pronouns of she and her. I'm a senior analyst at Platformable, and my focus is on open banking, open finance. It's a great honor to be here sharing our work today. So within the next couple of slides, I will be sharing our takes on what drives sustainability solutions, how can open banking, open finance enable, what else can help aside from banking finance APIs, and finally, just to wrap up with a snapshot of where we are now in the green fintech development in Europe and the UK. So let's go straight to what drives them. I suspect that none of this is new to you. So we have supportive regulations that is going from enabling actions from the EU levels down to countrywide legislations like the national net zero targets, for instance. We have consumers are becoming more aware of climate change and sustainability impacts. And we want green solutions to be embedded into our day-to-day life activity. Another driver, which is directly related to what we are sharing with you today, that is the ongoing digital transformations of the global economy. So a recent study from World Economic Forum has suggested that digital transformation would make a bigger business case if it is coupled with sustainability. And on this note, of course, the open banking, open finance is the most, let's say, mature open ecosystem that is out there, and it can certainly help accelerate this transformation. And last but not least is the reality. So the earth is calling for it. Extreme weather events and of course the pandemic that we are still going through are just some of the highlights. So then going on to the next slide, how is open banking, open finance enabling green fintech? We see three observations. So we have three observations. So the first one regarding the mandated APIs. So those core payment accounts information functionalities that Jonas has actually taken us through. So those core open banking functionalities, and we see that this minimum architecture is already helping any fintech at all, to build green solutions. So a common use case is the carbon trackers like Taxonomy that Jannika has been explaining to us early on. These trackers use account information shared via open banking APIs to calculate carbon footprints of banking transactions and of course purchasing behaviors or consumer lifestyle, generally speaking, mostly just to raise awareness at the moment. Now, the second observation is when open banking platforms go beyond the compliance scope to support green fintech in a more targeted manner. So several ways that banks can do this. They can promote publicly describing the potential green use cases for their existing API offerings. They can also open incubation, acceleration programs, or acquisition tracks to directly work with fintech, where they would provide these partners with mentorship, funding, access to customer base, and selected partner API integrations to build digital products and services. And of course, banks can also build a portfolio of specific sustainability APIs themselves. Just to give you some examples, Commerzbank is actually a very good one for describing green use cases. So related to the business cases of open banking with company data that Jonas shared with us just now, Commerzbank has published a case study where its corporate payment API, it's a basic payment API, was used to automate and streamline the energy prepayment processes for energy revolts. So this prepayment scheme allows their SME customers to better control their energy usage and hence, of course, associated costs and budgeting. NatWest Group is a good example as an acceleration program. So as you might have heard of Open Finance Challenge, where it co-hosted with 3 other global banks. And a couple of interesting sustainability solutions have been born out of this, Valai and Banyan. Valai is an API machine learning tool that helps enhancing building energy efficiencies, let's say. And Banyan is a lending platform for renewable energy projects. The last topic, KBC, is a very good example of spatial green API offerings, and if not the only example in Europe at the moment. So it is still a route less taken by the banks at the moment. Now, what KBC offers are bicycle and green energy loan APIs that allow merchants to offer their end customer credit financing for the green product purchase at the point of sales. So I choose the group buying scheme is one of the consumers of these APIs. So it allows individuals and households to jointly purchase solar panels or battery storages, that sort of renewable energy related products. Now, the final observation is that we believe that the API and accounts aggregators can still play a bigger role in this facilitating green fintech. So we've discussed how buying platforms can partner with green fintech, but the same goes with the API and accounts aggregators. These platforms have multi-bank account integration. They have data capabilities that will certainly benefit green fintech in building innovative solutions for sustainability impact. So currently, we track 6 out of 57 accounts aggregators operating in the UK and Europe are actually going green in the sense facilitating green fintech in a targeted manner. So the key take from this slide is that more can still be done, and we will revisit this point with Jannika later on. Now, moving on to the next slide, what else can green fintech use? We see three main groups of supportive stakeholders in this open sustainability ecosystem. The first one is data sharing, can via API integrations we're talking about, can also be coming from non-financial sectors. So it's revealed at the very interesting and engaging workshop that Mayuka and Gunther took us through early this morning. So there's no limit in product ideas, and that the creation of this digital innovation for sustainability impacts can leverage many sources of open data and information. So just some examples here, we have green tech, of course, exposing specific sustainability data, such as in the case of EcoVadis, sustainability ratings, that is integrated into Salesforce to help monitor the impacts of their upstream supply chain, the value chain. Now we have energy bodies, utilities can also share data information. The International Energy Agency can share data on the global energy mix. Utilities themselves can share information, the product offerings, customer data on energy, water usage, collected from smart devices, for instance. And not needless to say, the governments, municipalities can also share information, such as taxes, urban planning, renewable energy subsidies, etc. And it's really encouraging to see success stories like the one of the Lombardy region that Marco was sharing with us this morning, in this morning session as well. So of course there's others, transportation, logistics. So the bottom line here is that we are still at the beginning of the cross-sector data sharing. So very exciting. Another group of stakeholders that can help green fintechs are fintech and green tech associations. So these can help build networks, showcase best practice, setting standards, and of course encouraging their members to partner on solutions. And last but not least, the incubators, accelerators, they are important and they can help for funding and mentorship during the product ideation, as well as taking to the market, as the case of NatWest Group that we went through earlier. So my last slide, next slide of this presentation, before I hand back to Jannika. So where are we at the moment? What is the current footprint of green fintech in Europe and the UK? We've tracked 93 out of over 1,000 API-enabled fintech in the regions that are green by our definitions, by our taxonomy. And as you can see in the map, the UK is well ahead in terms of the absolute product availability, but Sweden and Finland have the highest shares of homegrown green fintech. So currently there are 45 green fintech companies operating in the UK. So 2-3 times the levels seen for Finland and Sweden. However, these green fintech only make up 7% of all fintechs operating in the UK. Only a third of the levels for Finland and Sweden. So the UK has 2 ingredients: fintech expertise, and of course they have open banking standards. But then the Nordic countries have a long-term commitment to environmental protections that have impacted on their fintech cultures of Finland and Sweden in this case. So I stop there. I hope I'm still okay with the time. And now Jannika will take you, will give you a closer look at the green fintech landscape in these 2 regions.
Thank you, Phuong. Yeah, so now that we've heard quite a few examples of the different types of fintech that's currently out there, we wanted to introduce our taxonomy to get a better view of the entire landscape. So we group the companies into 8 categories based on their sustainability product. And you see the taxonomy here on the slide. So our taxonomy, this is based on the Green Digital Finance Alliance's work. And here we want to highlight the 3 categories where we see currently the most amount of activity. So there would be payment and account solutions, investment solutions, and then a category called others. So in the payment and account solutions, these would be payment platforms or solutions. For example, the carbon footprint calculators that we've mentioned a few times before. Like Taxonomy and the likes. Another example could be payment backend or infrastructure customers solutions like Adyen, where they integrate a donation feature into the payment or the checkout flow so the customers can directly donate to environmental restoration projects or environmental charities as a part of the payment process. And the prominence of this category follows the broader fintech trend, like Phuong was mentioned, where the PSD2 accounts and payments APIs have enabled the widest range of solutions, especially in Europe. Then we have the green digital investment solutions, so solutions that use direct finance as a way to create sustainability impacts. So we mentioned the first one, Cushion and the net zero pension as an example. Another one could be Me Capital. They're a personal investment service where a user can indicate that they only want to invest in climate-friendly or ESG-aligned funds. This is basically just to make sure that you're not inadvertently funding oil companies or Amazon deforestation. And the last one that we want to mention here is the others category. So this is a wider range of solutions or applications. And so far, again, keeping in mind that here we're talking about Europe and the UK, these are mostly energy or transport solutions. So in most of these cases, the driver comes from outside banking or finance, but open banking enables action to be taken. So, for example, Phuong mentioned iChooser, the group solar buying scheme earlier. So it brings together households to collectively purchase and install solar panels. And the use case is probably primarily driven by energy questions or maybe climate or environmental concerns. But at some point of the journey, there's an open banking, open finance infrastructure element that actually enables the process. So yeah, these are just some of the highlights. There's lots more really, really interesting use cases here. So yeah, we'll share the graph later and you can have a look. So then going on to the actual sustainability impact, sustainability value. So what is the actual real world impact of these solutions? Our model here is based on the European Union's 6 environmental goals, which you see in here. So climate change mitigation, adaptation, biodiversity, circular economy, water, and pollution. And what we see currently is that most green fintech focus on climate change mitigation, which is reducing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And here it's worth noting that these categories are not mutually exclusive. And in many well-designed solutions, it's possible that the solutions provide benefits across multiple of these categories, which would be ideal. So for instance, a well-designed a tree planting operation, for instance, can deliver, we can do carbon capture, for instance, let's use that as an example. you can either do it by trees or by human-built technology. So a well-designed tree planting operation in a coastal area could deliver climate change mitigation, adaptation, and biodiversity benefits versus a carbon capture tech, a human-built version, which would only address the climate change mitigation side. So there are no easy answers, of course, to this, but as these are all important categories, and there isn't really a hierarchy as to say one is more important than the other, where possible, green fintech could be a little bit more intentional in creating solutions that double up on some of these benefits whenever possible. And on the climate change mitigation front, which is the most mature and we have the most data available there, we know that the biggest causes of greenhouse gases are energy use in industry, energy use in buildings, transport, and then agriculture. So again, keeping in mind the drivers that Phuong mentioned at the beginning of why are we doing this work in the first place, which is what we want to move to a more sustainable future and economies as quickly as possible. The solution should be focusing on these high impact areas, because awareness raising is important, but there are real dangers of greenwashing and some vanity metrics that give businesses and end users the feeling of progress, like I'm doing something, but actually the absolute impact is minimal. And in recent years, different offsetting schemes have become really popular. So I'm sure we've all seen the option to click here to plant trees next to, whatever sneakers or flights that you've been purchasing. And we're not going to get into that in detail, but just to note that these should not be used as a primary source of action for a few key reasons. One is it really supports this logic of business as usual, clean up afterwards. And then usually somewhere else. And also they're associated with a lot of they don't actually often deliver the promised greenhouse gas reduction benefits. Then I see that you're Claire back. Let me just finish on the last model. So then to bring the points together on what we've been saying. So this is kind of how we think about it. And it's been interesting to see that throughout the day, there have been examples, for instance, the session this morning by Marika and Kunta, where we really saw that there already is a whole range of existing APIs that could be used to create sustainability benefits. We just need more knowledge on what's out there, how do we use it, and just a little bit more creativity on how can we put these things together. So from left to right, we didn't really get into the target market. So just to say here that we really should be thinking beyond the individuals and making sure that we address all of the target markets. Potential for use is where you'd be thinking about those high impact areas. So again, here we start from the climate change mitigation, but making sure that we're thinking on hitting those high impact areas and also thinking beyond carbon dioxide really, and just thinking about some of the other environmental benefits that we could create with these solutions. And then we really want to be moving away from starting from awareness, but moving towards action, and in a way that the action step, the what can I do, is built into the digital solution whenever possible. So this is where we see that APIs can really shine, because they enable that connecting of the different pieces of the user journey together. So if we just finish with the idea or the example of a carbon footprint calculator and the energy in the energy category. So you often get a breakdown of your carbon footprint, let's just say seven tons a year, and it shows this how much comes from energy, from transport, whatnot. And then it's your job to do with that information what you wish. But you can easily see that you can connect that information with the next step, which would be thinking about products like Switchcraft or Money Supermarket, where you can go and compare electricity providers, and you can directly within the app switch to renewable energy sources, as a way to take that next step and move from just knowing that things are bad to being able to actually do something about it, just using one example as an individual use case or user journey. There's a lot more examples. I think we're not going to have time to go into those, unfortunately.
No, sadly, I think we are going to be pretty much out of time. But I have to say, that's such a lovely presentation in terms of the level of detail and thinking that you've put into this. And I'm sure that the audience will have got a lot of takeouts in terms of some really rich case studies and examples and visibility of what's happening in this space, which is moving and changing so quickly. And I don't even think we've got time for questions. Mehdi and Mark Boyd are having a conversation on the online chat at the moment. Oh, I'm going to ask one last question. Gunther's asked, how do you see efforts of the individual players getting united through some coordinated action? Big system question.
I think it's a very interesting question, and thanks for that. But I don't think that we would be able to give the answer within a second, because it requires a lot of collaboration, and we'd be happy to follow up, Gunther, on and definitely we would be happy to collaborate on product ideations, like you said earlier. It is a great example to start off. So start with the product ideation as collaboration. But we're happy to take this offline if that's all right with you.
So please contribute to the online chat conversation. That'll be absolutely great. And thank you both so much for sharing your talk and insights today. It's absolutely marvelous.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.